It's Nolan. I've been raking up off these niggas for a minute now. Hey, y'all gonna learn to listen one way or another though. Hey, let's get it. Let me show you how I keep the money coming. Strapped up, Nike check, nigga run it. In the mirror, yeah, I love what I'm becoming. Ain't no discussion, but don't make me spit your onion. Hey, let me show you how I keep the money coming. Strapped up, Nike check, nigga run it. In the mirror, yeah, I love what I'm becoming. Ain't no discussion, but don't make me split your onion. Yeah. Flashback to the days I was in the days. I was sleeping on the couch, couldn't nobody stay. I was serving up the chicken, couldn't get a raise. Now I'm cooking up the game like I'm Bobby Flay. Fuck rap, I ain't got no friends in this shit. Put them M's to the front like a Benz in this shit. I be swimming through the money, got some fins in this shit. I be stomping through the street like some Timbs in this bitch. Made trends in this shit for some IOUs, but I don't lose. Construction how I tighten them screws. Tie my shoes, back on the block, straight to the bag, ho. Jumping off the porch for that green like a tadpole. What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Now, in this particular video, we're going to be addressing Uncle Luke, who has come out and voiced no support for Drake and his pretrial motion with UMG, Universal, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We all know that on the heels of Not Like Us doing astronomical numbers, he's using the figures that are associated with that song to try to insinuate wrongdoing on the part of UMG, which is the parent company of Interscope Records, who Kendrick Lamar is currently in a licensing deal with. So they're basically trying to say that incentives were taken on behalf of Interscope, right? Which doesn't make any sense. They're trying to say that Kendrick paid content creators to review the song favorably across the internet, which also makes no sense because if you pay a content creator in 2024, it's just promotion and marketing. Advertising is a thing. There's whole websites dedicated to you could do influencer marketing on Instagram or TikTok right now through their portals. None of this is illegal. He's alleging that Universal paid iHeartRadio to spread the song out, give it more plays to make it more of a widespread hit. He's alleging that that Universal gave Spotify a 30% break in the licensing fee, meaning that Spotify would get more money off of Kendrick's Not Like Us if they made sure that the song got featured in more playlists and more prevalently throughout the app. And I'm going to just keep it a buck. All of these things that Drake is trying to say, I'll just say Universal would be risking a lot on behalf of one artist and one song. Let's just say that. They would be risking the future of their company on one artist when they have so many people under the umbrella, so many successful artists outside of even the hip hop genre that produce music at a pretty high clip and bring in a nice amount of money. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And anybody that's kind of trying to make him some sort of music industry martyr, I think you should relook at the landscape. Remove your fanhood for a moment. Just look at things from a logical perspective. Why would Universal sacrifice the future of their company? And go look up how long Universal's been around. Why would they sacrifice the future of their company on one artist and one song to make Drake look bad? Drake already looked bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean to say that about his appearance. I'm saying he just looks bad to the public eye. He's taking a loss. You take a L in hip hop. This is hip hop, mind you. You take a L in hip hop, you got to go backwards. You don't come back looking like the $1 Million Man no more. All right. But I do believe that Drake has been studying, or at least trying to follow some sort of blueprint as laid out by Prince. We're going to get to that later, but, and I'm not saying he's going to be successful in it, and I'm certainly not comparing his artistic output or creative genius to that of Prince. I'm just saying I believe that he was looking at Prince, or perhaps he just has similar, I hate to say it, but ego to that of a Prince, because his ego kind of got him in trouble. He was able to rebound, but it put him in a tough spot. Again, we're going to get to that later. Now let's get to Uncle Luke speaking on this whole Drake, UMG, threatening legal petition, potential lawsuit situation. Of course, we all know the situation, but now we got people in the industry coming out and letting it be known that this some sucker shit, which I totally support.
That's the guy who filed a lawsuit. I like Drake music. I don't like the guy who filed a lawsuit. I like Drake music. I don't like what he got going on right now, but I like his music. Some things you don't talk about. You don't talk about payola. You don't talk about buying live streams. And you don't sue after you got dissed. And you done did some dissing. But that's y'all new people. That's y'all young people. Y'all young people live in a soft society. That's why I'm glad I'm an OG. All y'all young people, soft. God damn it. Y'all soft. Y'all soft. You got soft men. You got rappers get in a diss war, and then they go get the gun and shoot each other. No, how about go and fight? Our favorite rappers are snitching on, talking about payola and getting in their feelings and suing people over a diss. We dissed each other. Me and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg dissed each other, and other rappers, Real Roxanne, Shantae, everybody dissed each other. One thing off limit, the kids off limit, girlfriends off limit, mama off limit, all that. That's what y'all do. Just keep it a buck.
That's Uncle Luke's assessment. I had to clean that up too, because he had some Drake music playing in there. You know, we don't play that copyright shit over here. You know what I'm saying? And we wanted to hear him clearly rather than just the music, so I had to run that through some software to extract that music out of that video. If for anyone out there wondering, because it's always one, you know? But in his reaction, he says, one thing you don't talk about is payola. I don't know why payola would be off limits. But then he also says the kids, girlfriends, and mamas is supposed to be off limits. He did bring up his own beef with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, which they definitely got at him. You know, Dre Day got at him. And shit, didn't he say something? Didn't Snoop say something about that mama? Hershey was or was that at Easy E? I don't know. Hershey was a Frisco blank. Can't say it on here. Then he's saying, but fuck your mama. I'm talking about you and me. Whatever. You know, I think they damn near got into some squabbles back in the days about that shit. But I'd respect that more than going the legal paper route. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. But you know what's interesting is, as Luke spoke about Drake's disposition at this moment, it reminded me that Uncle Luke actually was an independent pioneer. It's something that we don't talk about as much. You know, he tends to get overlooked. I'll be honest, I'm not the craziest about Uncle Luke. Sometimes he says shit that I just don't respect at all, right? And I really don't respect how he switched over to being a pastor, but then went back to being Uncle Luke. But, you know, same gripe people have with Mace. But nonetheless, he was an independent pioneer. Those early 2 Live Crew records from the 80s, 1986, was on Luke Records, not distributed by no big company. It wasn't until, I think, 1990 that he got distribution from Atlantic. So The early years of him coming out, it was his shit under his label. And then he lost the lawsuit to George Lucas, that George Lucas, Star Wars, damn, because his company was really called Skywalker Records. Then he lost the copyright trademark lawsuit to where he had to change the name to Luke Records, right? Then he got wrapped up in that. There was a sample issue that he had gotten sued for. And coming out of the 80s, the sample laws weren't really established yet. So there was a lot of music being flipped because that's what the DJs of the times had to work with in order to create, outside of, buying your own instruments, which were expensive. So he got wrapped up in court for the sample issue, which he ended up winning. But it costed him a lot of money in lawyer fees in order to withstand through that trial. Then the George Lucas situation, fighting for the name of his label, that also drained him of a lot of money. As a matter of fact, he lost. So then he also, I believe he had to pay $1 million to George Lucas after losing and having to change his name. So it ended up putting him in a financial pickle, and he sold his record company to a legal professional that was helping him with his lawsuits, right? And he sold the company for $800,000, and homeboy got all the copyrights to his music that existed up to that point. And he had to eventually sue to get all of his music back. It wasn't until this year that Uncle Luke got his music back, right? So all that stuff that we heard, I think Shake With Your Mama Gay, all that shit, humble, hooch your mom, all that shit, he ain't own it no more, right? And it's just going to be a video where we could do a quick little history lesson about some of the people that have gone against the music industry and had to get their shit back from somebody else, which is assumably what Drake is trying to do with Universal. He's not doing it in the best fashion, especially when you're throwing another artist under the bus to make yourself look good or to try to prove a point, especially an artist that you have a very public beef with and you just lost a battle to. So clearly, your reputation is completely tarnished to eternity, especially in rap. But just quick little lesson here, right? So October 16th, 2024, this article was published saying that 2 Live Crew, Uncle Luke, won their music back. Let's just talk about how this happened. Miami federal jury on Wednesday cleared the way for famed hip-hop group 2 Live Crew to recapture ownership of their early 1990s music catalog, concluding a major copyright termination battle with Lil Joe Records. Now, the whole thing with Lil Joe Records, this company did not exist prior to Luke selling him the copyrights. And I think they were doing this with a handshake deal. He probably expected to sell homeboy the copyrights for the $800,000 because he needed the money. And he probably thought that homeboy would come back and give him the copyrights back and they would get back to business as usual, right? Because he was a part of what he was doing. They were building together. And then homeboy said, hell no. Which, of course, in hindsight, I'm sure Luke should have expected it. But we'll keep going. The dispute centered on Section 203A on the Copyright Act, which permits creators to terminate copyright transfers after 35 years. This is the same clause that Jay-Z is speaking on when it concerns reasonable doubt, which is why there was so much issue between Dame Dash and Jay, because Jay put the information out there to say, hey, reasonable doubt is the only asset under the Rockefeller LLC company. But I want you to understand, in just a few more years, that's coming back to me. Dame Dash said, no, that's not true. Judge said, yes, it is. right? So Uncle Luke is using the same Section 203A under Copyright Act to get his shit back, which he did. So copyright legislation designed to protect artists who may have signed over rights under unfavorable terms. Surviving group member Luther Luke Campbell and the heirs of Mark Ross and Christopher Wong Wan, have been fighting in court for 3 years to terminate 1990 transfers of their master recordings to Skywalker Records, later named Luke Records, the label once closely associated with the group. Joseph Lil Joe Weinberger, this is the tax lawyer who actually served as Luke's CFO in the company and his in-house legal counsel, previously bought the rights to 2 Live Crew's master recordings out of bankruptcy for $800,000. He then formed his own label, Lil Joe Records, to distribute them. During the trial, which lasted about a week and a half, attorneys for Lil Joe Records argued that 2 Live Crew created the songs at issue while employees of the record label, and that the tracks were therefore works made for hire and eligible for copyright termination. This was exactly Dame Dash's argument against Jay-Z as well, that these were made under a work for hire agreement, basically stating you have no legal right to claim ownership over this because you were paid or you signed a work for hire agreement which says you're not entitled to that, right? It didn't work out in either case. Campbell testified earlier that payments to the group were per diems and advances, not wages, and that the members retained a share of profits from album sales, live performances, and merchandise arrangements inconsistent with a typical label-employee relationship. The jury agreed, finding that the group did not record the songs as works made for hire. The verdict allows 2 Live Crew to reclaim rights to much of their iconic catalog, including hits like Me So Horny and Get It Girl. Earlier in the case, the court ruled on summary judgment that termination rights survive bankruptcy, an issue of first impression for U.S. courts. So even though he went into bankruptcy and all of that other stuff, they still were able to get the music back. And this just happened in October. A lot of people probably never even heard about this shit. I surely didn't. I had to go look it up because I'm like, I do remember him having his own label, but whatever happened with that shit? And I know he went through some legal issues, but I didn't know to the extent, right? So Luke has a little bit of experience with going to war for his intellectual property. But even with that, he didn't throw no other artists under the bus. He didn't accuse nobody of no payola. He didn't say you're investing more money into this artist and pulling back the resources you're putting into me in order to make me less valuable to the company. This wasn't that type of deal, right? But I want to double back to Prince because I think that's who Drake may be pulling some of his inspiration from with his legal claims. Okay. Now, I'm on a website called Stack Exchange, Music Fans. And I watched this documentary last night from Prince. Well, it's about Prince. It's not from him. It's about him. Called Slave Trade, How Prince Rebuilt the Music Industry or something like that. Let me look up the actual title. Yeah, Slave Trade, How Prince Remade the Music Business. And for anybody that would like to endeavor to go check it out, it's available on Tubi. It's available on YouTube. And it's available on Amazon and some other shit too, I think. But easiest way to get it would be YouTube or Tubi, okay? But basically, in the early 90s, you know, Prince basically was at a place where he was dropping like an album per year, which is pretty much anti what a lot of people were doing at the time, because he was a prolific creator. He was in the studio constantly producing, writing, and recording. He was writing music for other artists. He had his label, Paisley Park, all this different type of stuff going on. And he was selling massive amounts of records, but for whatever reason, he wanted to be the most valuable man in music, right? Which, of course, leads you back to the rivalry he had with Michael Jackson. Madonna was also in that conversation as well, right? So in 1992, he re-upped. He had a renegotiation with Warner Brothers, now Warner Music, and they gave him $100 million contract, right? So they say on August 31st, 1992, Prince signed a new recording contract with Warner Brothers Records worth potential $100 million, which was more than several pop mega deals struck earlier. Madonna's contract with Warner and Michael Jackson's pact with Sony Music, both estimated at $60 million apiece. Okay? So, the guy that he was running Paisley Park, the label with, his label, he says that Prince was fixated on all the newspapers and publications in the music business, putting out the headline that he got $100 million. He wanted to be the first one to cross that threshold, right? Old boy was like, dog, you sure you want to focus on getting that 100? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if they give you that, it's going to come with some takeaways. And that means you ain't always going to be comfortable. You ain't always going to like it. But he said that Prince was just like, dog, I'm that nigga I'm that nigga in my city. Okay? So, therefore, he gets his $100 million contract. Not $100 million paid out at once, but that was the deal's value. Okay? So Prince's new contract was an extension of his previous contract. Sound familiar? 400. The reconfiguration amounted to a $10 million advance per album, twice that of Michael Jackson and Madonna's $5 million per album, plus a royalty rate of approximately 20%. Some sources claim 25, 3 times his previous percentage. Jesus. So he wasn't getting shit out there, which, of course, we're talking about the early 90s, right? But they say, however, Prince would only get his $10 million advance if the previous album has sold at least 5 million copies, i.e., it is an advance on sales, basically an interest-free loan, which would have to be paid back to the label, if sales were low, actually deducted from royalties on older albums. An important clause, because while Prince's 13 albums had sold nearly 53 million, which is an average of 4 million each, a large chunk of that is due to 1984's Purple Rain, his bestseller at 14.7 million. Okay? They say, as a matter of fact, only 3 of his albums had sold more than 5 million copies, though one of them was his latest album, Diamonds and Pearls, which was the last one before the renegotiation took place. So he's coming off selling 5 million records. So basically they set the benchmark saying, okay, if we're going to give you this money, everything that you need to put out from this point forward has to match this level. This is what Warner said to him. He agreed. But again, if you listen to what I'm saying here, this article says that his albums up to this point averaged 4 million. So on average, if you looked at it, he wouldn't typically be able to measure up to that 5 million sale obligation, but he was betting on himself. Okay? They say this large advance was regarded as an attempt by Warner Brothers to motivate Prince to invest the same effort into future releases as he'd done for Diamonds and Pearls, releasing albums less frequently. So they wanted him to slow down his creation process because he, like I said, he was dropping an album a year. They say, hey, take a little bit more time, give the public some time to miss you, and then we'll drop, and then we could see if we could meet those 5 million benchmarks. But if you keep dropping so fast, you're not giving yourself enough time to really sell. You know what I'm saying? But he was ready to just start dropping crazy. Okay? So releasing albums less frequently and promoting them heavily via singles, videos, and extensive touring. Prince's sales had been inconsistent, especially in the US, whereas Madonna had never sold fewer than 5 million copies of any recording. Prince's Love Sexy in 1988 sold less than 1.7. Then you have his label, Paisley Park. A further 10 million was used to make Paisley Park Records a joint venture with Warner Brothers. So they gave him an additional $20 million to do a JV, which artists are still doing JVs in the music industry to this day, with Warner, which could force Prince to become more involved in the running of the label, whereas previously Paisley Park Records would simply supply the master recordings to Warner, who would then manufacture, distribute, and promote the release. Now the label would decide on what to invest in videos and promotional efforts, right? So their previous agreement, they allowed Prince to just bring his artists' music to them and they would distribute it and promote it. And it would be, at no cost, basically, to Prince. Now that they gave him this 20 million, it's like, you're part of this as well. So basically, it would force him to take more time, more effort into who he's working with, how he wants to put the projects out for the label, etc. Right? Because now he's going to owe money to the label if the other artists don't do well. Whereas that wasn't the case before. The documentary said that those artists were technically like tax write-offs, like Sheila E., Carmen Electra, people he was putting projects out on, right? Warner and Prince would share investments and profits. Some reports also mention an additional joint venture record label, possibly for singles, tentatively named Love. The final $20 million included another advance, this time by Warner Chappell Music Publishers, big-time publisher in the game, part of which was a new 3-year agreement between Prince's music publishing company, Controversy Music, and Warner Chappell for the handling of his copyrights worldwide. So then he got a co-pub deal, in which he got another $20 million up front, right? Another agreement would involve Prince and Warner's actively looking for new talent. This was cited as the reason why Warner named him Vice President of Artists and Repertoire. So he was the Vice President of A&R, which is a music scouting position where you go out and find new talent, put them in the studio, and link them with producers. But he already had in-house producers, his own people, himself. So that seemed like an easy win, right? They gave him an office in their LA headquarters. However, it is assumed that Prince only wanted this position in order to acquire Time Warner stock options, right? So he was at that point mostly motivated by the money, right? And once he took this deal, he wanted to try to start releasing albums every 6 months, which of course the label was not down with, right? They wanted him to, instead of dropping once a year, they wanted to say, shit, maybe take 2-3 years off, come back, give us some time to fucking tour properly, all this different stuff. So that then becomes the issue where Prince puts the slave on his face. He goes to war. He changes his name. He goes into being the symbol, right? All of the stuff that we remember. That's the business deal that took place that led into that. He had just came off of $100 million contract in theory. And then the next album he put out underperformed, right? So he was finding himself in a pretty jacked up spot. No. I think actually the first album that came out might have did like 5 million on the nose. And then from there, he started to decline in sales and he started putting out music. And then there was like a Prince album that came out, but then there was another album at the same time that came out with the symbol. And he was really trying to like bet on himself independently to say, I want my fans to go get the symbol album. Don't get the Prince album. And then shit got a little, interesting, I'll say. Now, in the end, of course, Prince ended up getting his music back. He ended up severing his ties to Warner. He ended up going independent and kind of rebuilding his career from that point forward. And of course, we know basically how the story goes with him and his extensive catalog, his vaults of music, and all of that different type of stuff. He ended up going back to do another deal with Arista in the I think 1999 it was, and that didn't work out either. He did a 1-album deal with them for distribution. That didn't go well. So then he remained independent from that point forward. But I think Drake has been trying to pull from that same playbook, right? The frequent drops, trying to be the most prolific, for lack of a better term, trying to be the most consistent. Let's say consistent. Just keep dropping. But even in the case of Prince, a lot of people felt like when he was dropping all this music, some of the material they felt was questionable. Like when he tried to put out a rapper on his label, and he was like one of the main vocalists on the album, but his rap style, it was like 1993. Homeboy was rapping like it was 1988. You know what I'm saying? So it was like people were like, yo, what's going on? So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Drake. I don't know. I don't think he's going to win. There's not too many people that beat the game. There's not too many people that are going to jump in on some Spawn shit, jump into the pits of hell and come out surviving. You know what I'm saying? But all of this stuff has been kind of having my brain working because, again, for those that don't know, when I started like really doing content on this channel, my wheelhouse was really music industry, music business, the inner workings, the masters, the publishing. Like people were selling their catalogs left and right, and there was a lot of misinformation that was being disseminated and spread online. So I started making content like telling people like the real deal of how this shit worked. And of course, we've kind of got into current events, and current events are always great, but I always love a good music business conversation that I can have with y'all to like really kind of give y'all some game about, because everything that you see has already happened before, probably 20 times over, whether you know it or not. There's so many other rock stars that went to war with the industry. We know Michael Jackson went to war, but he had the bread to put up. Rather than just taking the money, he also had bread that he could put his nuts on the table, buy niggas catalogs and shit like that, which Prince might have been better off doing that rather than continuing to accept more money, knowing that he wanted creative freedom, right? It took him a while to learn that. And he even did a later interview saying with Oprah that sometimes he wanted to call Warner and thank them for the lessons that he learned because he was, you know, moving a bit incorrectly at the time. So he also was a visionary for digital music. So he wasn't all the way wrong in his assessments because he wanted to release at a higher rate. He wanted to incorporate selling his music online at a time where nobody could really fathom that. He was one of the first artists to have his own website where he was selling his music. He ended up doing that independently because no label would invest into online selling like that. He was early into like developing like a fan club website where you could sign up and get discounts and get tickets and all of that type of stuff. He ended up going to war with the touring game to where he started independently running his tour. In the documentary, one of the ladies who was singing in his band, she says, yo, I remember waking up one day, Prince said he wanted to do a show on Thursday and it was Monday. Like, it's Monday now. He says, we doing a show Thursday. They booked out a venue that could hold 20,000 people. And by Thursday, they was on that motherfucking stage doing that show and it was sold out. Right? So his whole campaign was betting on himself, betting that he could recruit, betting that he could sell tickets, betting that he could, activate his audience because they were that clued in with him. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Right? So I think Drake is trying to find a way to do the same. The problem is you not Prince. The problem is you also are trying to throw another artist under the bus rather than put your nuts on the table. See, that's the thing. If Drake just came out and say, yo, these niggas been robbing me and they did XYZ, and they trying to fuck me over, they stealing my artists, they stealing my, you know what I'm saying? Like, hell, your better bet was to say these motherfuckers are trying to turn Jack Harlow into me. You might have gained a little bit more favor from that, but you also collaborated with him and kind of allowed it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of people, whenever Jack Harlow drops a song, they're like, sounds like Drake, get out of here. But, you know, you're just not in the right spot. Maybe you should have waited. Or maybe you should have never took the deal. Maybe you should have never took the 400. Maybe you should have went independent when it was when it was at your front door. You know? Because the other part of, you know, having a public war with your label is you gotta have the favor of the fans. You gotta have the favor of the fans. Even when Lupe Fiasco was going at it with Atlantic Records and they was trying to withhold his album from coming out, Anonymous came out and said, we not letting y'all hold this Lupe album. Right? If y'all don't put this Lupe Fiasco album out, it's gonna be some shit to pay, and we gonna start leaking out information on motherfuckers. We gonna make this shit real hard for y'all to sleep. That motherfucking album that Laser shit came out. I don't think it lived up to the hype. But when you got the fans on your side, that's when you could get some shit done. Not when the public has turned against you and said, we kind of would be better off if he wasn't over here trying to suck up all the oxygen. You know what I mean? So I feel like he's miscalculated in a lot of different ways. I think some of his claims are definitely frivolous. I think some of the stuff in that pretrial motion, both of them, are weak. So I don't see how this really works out in homie's favor. But again, like I said, if he proves me wrong, I'll have to make a video and state that I was wrong. But in this time, I see what he's trying to go for. But I don't think he has a very solid leg to stand on. And you're using the name of the artist that everybody is championing. Even if Drake has a lot of fans that hate Kendrick Lamar, it's not enough to take him down. It's not enough. You know what I'm saying? He's riding high. He's the champ. He got the trophy. Niggas is holding him up on his shoulders. It is what it is. So this was terrible. You thought you were gonna put these legal filings out there and try to stomp on that nigga's rollout of his album. Come to find out, nigga, this might not even be the real album. This is just a warm up, a prelude. Somebody said. I think that was a really good word for it, rather than a mixtape. This is the prelude to the album, perhaps, right? So if Drake's petty level is still at code red or code orange by the time Kendrick's next project does drop, I think he files the official lawsuit. I think that's what happens. He's already threatened to do it. He wants to get depositions and all this stuff. Them depositions ain't gonna yield nothing for you. You want them to put a freeze on everything. You don't want them to try to delete nothing. Yeah, okay. See how that goes for you. I think he goes, oh, you dropping another one? I'm about to file some more paperwork. I'm about to get everybody just covered in paperwork. Fuck it. But I thought cease and desist was whole shit. I thought taking a legal route was whole shit. You include another nigga shit in your complaint. Put your nuts on the table and say they've been stealing from me. They've been doing me dirty. Crazy. You lose a battle to this nigga and then want to throw his name in your issue. It ain't enough Rory and Mal videos that could convince the crowd that ain't some bullshit. Let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Become an insider. I want to reiterate one more time for those that jumped in, while I was talking. In no way, no shape, no form, no fashion am I trying to compare Drake and Prince musically, artistically, or talent or musical genius wise. I'm only comparing their deals at the height of their fame and presence, and how Prince ended up regretting it, which it looks like that's how Drake feels in this moment. Okay? I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace. Yeah, king of my city and cul-de-sac. Coming out swinging like soldier rag. Leading my people like quarterback. Boy, I study this shit, I'm an almanac. Had to get up and grind. Knowledge is booming, I'm here to apply. Came with the chip and the dip, it just single the mind. We finna do more than survive. I need my check. Spinning the block for the Gouda. We hitting the jeweler to flood out the net. We don't do beef on computers, I'm straight out the sewer. We come when you rest. Niggas be looking perplexed, so keeping my foot on their neck. No map, I trust my gut for the quest. With drama, I'm fully abreast. I was ready for years and they doubted me. All of a sudden they tell me they proud of me. I been dropping these haters like calories. Cross them out, I came back with some boundaries. Stand for my honor, but too raw, no corner. Packing the stick with a drummer. Wanna catch my bad, won't fumble. I done came too far to be humble.